The conqueror stands at the gates of the forbidden city, his sword stained with blood, his horses trampling the silks of a fallen dynasty. He has won. He has taken the throne. He is the master of the greatest land mass in the East. But look closer 30 years later. The same man, or perhaps his son, will be found bowing before a statue of a sage he never knew. He is writing poetry in a language he was born to despise, enforcing a legal code that turns his own children into his former enemies. How does a victim become the victor? By simply swallowing the aggressor whole. This is the story of a civilization that digests its enemies for thousands of years. Nomadic tribes from the windswept northern steppes looked down at the lush green valleys of China with a burning desire. They were the masters of the bow and horse. When they attacked, they didn't just want to win battles, they wanted to replace the master. Imagine being a leader of a nomadic confederation. Suddenly, you sit on the dragon throne, surrounded by millions who view you as a barbarian. The moment you start governing, you need civil servants, tax collectors, and scholars who know the rituals. These people serve the system. China was never just a country. It was an operating system for humanity, with rules for everything: how you eat, speak, and hold power. To run the empire, you had to prove you were the legitimate heir to the mandate of heaven by performing the dance of previous owners. Consider the Mongols. They were the most fearsome war machine the world had seen, leveling entire empires in the Middle East and Europe. But the gravity of the Chinese administrative machine was too strong. By the Yuan dynasty, Mongolkins were concerned with court politics, not armies. To govern, you need data. To have data, you need records. To have records, you need a language. The conqueror begins to learn. With every sentence he writes, he is losing a piece of his own heritage and gaining a piece of the one he conquered. Think about the Roman Empire. When the Goths dismantled Rome, they didn't become Roman. They built on top of the ruins, keeping their tribal identity. China was different. To be a conqueror without adopting Chinese culture was to be a temporary squatter. To be emperor, you had to be Chinese. Identity shifts over generations. His grandchildren will be raised by nurses who speak the language and tutored by scholars who worship the classics. By the third generation, the barbarian roots are seen as a defect to be corrected. The assimilation is complete. Think of the Manchus conquest. They forced the population to adopt their hairstyle, the cue on pain of death, a sign of total submission. Yet, within centuries, the Manchus became the most enthusiastic defenders of Chinese tradition, protecting the arts and expanding borders. Chinese civilization is a giant, slow-moving river. An invader is a rock thrown into that river. The rock might create a splash, but the river flows around it, smoothing its edges until the rock is just part of the riverbed. This still applies. China interacts with the global order by mastering the rules and expanding from within. It is a strategy of internal growth. The civil service exam was the ultimate tool. To climb the ladder, you had to internalize the values of the past. Proving your worth through mastery, you arrive as a warrior. But find your sword cannot manage the flood cycles of the Yellow River. You need the people you despise. The most dangerous thing you can do to an enemy is to let him enter your home. You don't bar the door. You set the table. By the time dinner is over, he is no longer the guest. He is part of the household, thinking in your language, worrying about your worries. The Xiongnu, Mongols, Manchus, they all started with the same ambition and ended with the same fate. They were integrated, they were absorbed. The warrior wins the battle. But the scholar wins the history. The secret to survival isn't winning. It's becoming the environment. The river flows on, indifferent to the rocks that fall into it. It simply waits, it absorbs, and continues. Thanks for watching.